You know, last hour I was speaking with Joshua School, and we were talking about how to know if somebody is maybe acting suspicious or if there's been changes in somebody's behavior, and how you should call the police. You know, you should make contact with law enforcement if something really seems off, if you have a feeling that somebody, for instance, has been radicalized. And now we're getting, in this last hour, the Associated Press spoke with one of the suspect's neighbors who says that this suspect disappeared 2 weeks ago, but looked okay otherwise. So what do you think investigators will be looking into given that information? So now we have a little piece of this guy's life, right? That he disappeared. Nobody saw him around for 2 full weeks.
Well, absolutely. I'm sure as they look at social media, there are probably some encrypted apps that he has utilized to communicate. But as you talk to family members, usually in situations like this, sometimes the changes start off as subtle. But once there's an escalation, it really goes off the charts. So obviously this escalation is one that went to an extreme measure. And the thing about it, Laura, is that, you know, for law enforcement, for intel agencies, for federal agencies, we have to be right 100% of the time. The terrorist, the bad actor, they just have to get it right one time, and they change the trajectory of how these type of situations are looked at, what the threat level is, you know, how as a society we decide we're going to move. Because the aim of the terrorist is to create panic, fear, to have you looking over your shoulder, in some instances seeing ghosts, wondering if, you know, should I report this or not?
Right.
I think we cannot err, we must err on the side of caution. Again, if you see something, say something, report it to local police. It could be absolutely nothing, but as you start to look back over these situations, there are breadcrumbs that are dropped by these individuals that once you put that puzzle together, there's always that if I had have said ABC, we just don't want people to have that on their conscience, that if I had of. You just cannot be too careful in times like this.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking yesterday about the suspect driving more than 2,300 miles. We're talking about Washington State. Look at the path of the alleged gunman on your screen. We're talking about all the way from Washington State to D.C. Look at how far he drove to allegedly do this, okay? So what does it tell you about his motive? I mean, he might have changed his mind halfway and then went back to his original plan. We just simply don't know at this point. But man, that's a long way to go when there's National Guardsmen, you know, everywhere in the country.
Well, it tells about the level of premeditation and a forethought and planning that had to go into this. Even though these two soldiers who unfortunately were targeted may not have been specific targets, but the uniform, the military, what they stand for, what the residual effects of this type of attack will do to a community, to drive that far. There are so many opportunities to, you know, bail out on something like that. So there's a level of premeditation and determination to carry out a very heinous act. And I'm sure as prosecutors go through the iterative process of putting their case together, those will be factors. Every cell phone tower that he hit, every stop he made, every interaction he may have had in a convenience store, every camera he might show up on. All of these things, part and parcel, will give some insight into the situation. Will it change the situation? No. But these things are, from an investigative standpoint, are so important to capture as much information as possible so we can project as much as possible when these types of behaviors come on the radar. There can be some meaningful interdiction.
Yeah, and also another part of this story, a big part of the story, is learning that the suspect came here from Afghanistan. He was able to come here through that special asylum program because he previously worked in a special program backed by the CIA. So when we're talking about rewinding the tape and going back to possible previous red flags that might have been missed in the vetting process, where do you see that going? And if you could keep the answer short, because we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you about that.
Well, I'll just simply say this. This cannot be a political football. We have to have a reasonable analysis to find out what happened, how it happened, and make sure we do everything humanly possible not to have it happen again.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.